Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, it is Wednesday night in the big town. Austin Brubaker joins. Austin, what's it going to take to get Corbin Burnes to L.A.? Firing fastballs right off the bat.
Holy cow,
I can
man.
melt all the snow outside your house with that one statement right off the bat, right?
Well, the funny thing is in the state of Michigan, when you come here, the weather changes all the time. So literally just a week ago, we had a giant snowfall just slam into us. Today, you look outside right now, there's nothing. No snow whatsoever. It's just miserable and rainy and all wet. The snow will come back within the next couple of days, in which case we'll need to fire a fastball and heat it back up in order to get rid of the snow a little bit. No, that's an intriguing question that you ask, which we will address at some point as part of the show. And I don't know if I want to answer that right away.
Hey, by the way, before you keep going, Jesus Calise did not enjoy the cold weather of Great Lakes towards it. I interviewed Jesus, and he was like, I couldn't feel my arm, and my arm was hurt. I was like,
okay.
I didn't say it, but I was like, well, you're going to probably start there next year. So.
Yes. I was about to say, with Jesus, and I love Jesus.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
Great
first
guy.
American interview ever. He did it on Dodgers Daily. I'm releasing that
That's
tomorrow.
awesome.
He gave me the first interview ever. How about that?
That's awesome. And yeah, that absolutely amazing. And it's a credit to him as well for how long he's gotten into
he started
a lot
at zero.
of this. Yes.
At 2021, he was at 0 with English.
Yes, that's awesome. But here's the thing. He was in Great Lakes towards the end of the 2024 season, which means he got to spend some time in, I believe it was July, August, September. That's nothing compared to what's going to come his way, assuming that he starts the season in Great Lakes in April. He has no idea what's coming. In September, it was a little bit chilly at times. It's not 30 degrees out, and it might be snowing on game day, and you have a game going out there. I'm excited for those games. I couldn't be more excited to go sit out in 20-degree weather to go watch a baseball game. That fires me up. But everybody else just hates it.
Right.
I'm the one person that is there. There's like 50 people in the crowds, and I'm one of the only people that's there. I love it. But no, I totally get it, especially if he's not used to that. Getting into this type of environment, super weird to be able to do that. It's a fun night, though, and there's not a whole lot of actual news for the Dodgers as far as that is concerned, which means there's a whole lot of different possibilities and different directions of ways that the Dodgers could go. And especially as we get a little deeper into free agency, as we we're almost to Christmas. We're a week away from Christmas.
Yep.
Players want to start to have answers by this point. And especially with past free agencies, like what we saw happen to Blake Snell last offseason. That was not his plan for how he was picturing or wanted that offseason to go, to where he had to sign, I think it was during spring training, in which case he didn't actually get a full spring training, had to delay to his starts, didn't get the contract that he was looking for. I think you have the potential of, especially once we get past the holidays, once we get past Christmas and New Year's, which can be a little bit of a dead period for some teams, executives, and they're all people too, which means that they probably want to spend time with
There's actually a
family.
physical dead period where they can't contact the players.
That very much is true. You could see some of the players might be getting a little bit more desperate, and especially as we get a little bit later, as teams turn to different aspects, turn to different areas, the limited amount of options opens up the ability for certain moves to be made, which is why you bring up a Corbin Burnes. Now, for the initial contract that what he was looking for the Dodgers aren't going to go anywhere near that. For the 6-7 years that Corbin Burnes was rightly looking forward to entering this offseason. However, if we get later and later into free agency, which we're not quite there yet,
possibility.
It becomes a little bit more of a possibility.
We're not trying to make too much of it.
Yes, it becomes a little bit more of a possibility because he's a really good talent, an incredible pitcher, and the Dodgers are one of the teams that would spend that type of money for a shorter term deal, potentially with some opt-outs because of the upside that Corbin Burnes has. I'm not predicting this to happen in any way, shape, or form. I don't think this is going to happen because I think some team is going to want to sign him to a good deal.
Man.
He's really good. But later we get into free agency. the more likely that becomes. I just don't think we're quite to that point yet. Still an incredible pitcher, though, and especially when there's not a whole lot of news. You start thinking about different options and trying to think about different ways to approach this team and make this team better. And I think that is something that the Dodgers are seriously looking at, and they're going to do everything that they can to try to make this team better. And if they are 100% convinced that this is the correct move, then they'll go ahead and do that, because I think that conviction.
Well, they'd already done it if they were convinced of that.
Yeah, they've already done a lot of those things. I'm talking about additional moves on top of that.
Yeah.
The additional moves on top of that.
There's more to come.
I think there is more to come.
They're just playing chess right now.
They're playing chess, and they want it to be on their terms, and they want to be very confident that the moves that they're going to make are going to be the correct moves. And I think that's where the Dodgers are at.
So with the Devin Williams thing, we've been talking about that all off season. Devin Williams came out the other day and said he just assumed he was going to be a Dodger because there was negotiations. We have to assume him saying that his agent was telling him about the negotiations, and they were getting pretty deep, and it looked inevitable that they were going to reach a deal with the Dodgers. So that falling through, does that automatically mean that the Dodgers are going to go get Tanner Scott, or is there somebody else out there, or are they willing to roll with what they got?
It could mean a lot of different things. So I think Tanner Scott is very much a realistic possibility for this Dodgers team, because everybody.
How many years is he going to want on his contract?
And that is the question. I say a realistic option for the Dodgers because he's an incredibly talented pitcher, and because he's one of the best relievers in the game of baseball. And the Dodgers obviously want one of the best relievers in the game of baseball. But the Dodgers, I don't believe, are going to dish out an incredible sum of money to go ahead and overpay for a reliever. When we get to, and we'll talk about this a little bit.
Money or years? Or are you saying that same thing?
I'm talking about years. I'm talking about, for the most, when I'm talking about contracts, for the most part, I'm talking about years in terms of the Dodgers. Other organizations have to worry a little bit more about the actual financial aspect. The Dodgers, they seem to be printing out money, and they are willing to spend a lot more than other teams. I think it has to do more with the risk of years, and especially with the high risk that relievers run into, and with the ability to get high upside, or at least high production for a low cost from the bullpen. You don't necessarily have to spend a lot of your resources towards that. That has been the philosophy for the Dodgers. So to have them go out and spend for somebody that is not from within the organization and extend them to a long-term type of deal for a reliever would be out of character for this organization for what they have done in the past, because they typically don't like to give out longer-term contracts to relievers, especially for a Tanner Scott, who I wouldn't think that it would get to as big as a Josh Hader contract, which last year he signed for a 5-year, almost $100 million contract to be a Houston Astro. I don't think it would get to that extreme, although I think he's pushing for several years, whether that be 3 or 4 year type of deal. And I just don't know if the Dodgers are comfortable getting it to that point. I think if it was a 2-year, possibly even a 3-year deal, they would roll the dice.
They do 3 years. Like I don't have any doubt about that.
Yes. Anything beyond that.
I mean, 33 years old. He's 30 right now. So, I mean, you're talking 32, 33 when he's done. That's easily doable. Easily.
Yes.
I think that's a no-brainer, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Of course, it's not my money. I mean, it is in the sense that if I want to go to a game, it's my money in the sense that I have to pay the extra price for the tickets and beer and all that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think 3 years they definitely would do. So what about? So is there anybody else out there other than Tanner Scott that you would be satisfied with?
I think there are potentially other options. A lot of those other options would be on the trade market. You could also go and try to, especially if it's a 1-year deal. One of the better relievers in the game of baseball last year is actually Kirby Yates, who's actually a free agent relief pitcher. Again, he's up there in age. He's like 36, 37 years old.
But on 1 year,
season, on a 1-year deal for the type of production that he had, that could be an option the Dodgers go down.
Ryan
Helsley from St. Louis, who only has 1 year left on his contract, could be an option through the trade route, which is exactly the trade route that the Dodgers were at least looking into with the Milwaukee Brewers for a Devin Williams. Ultimately, the Brewers decided to go with the Yankees deal. Whether there was a Dodgers offer on the table or not is something that we have no idea on. That's all just speculation.
Apparently, Devin Williams thought there was.
At least there was a lot of communication back and forth between the Brewers and the Dodgers to where that became a very realistic possibility for the Dodgers to be able to do. That ultimately is not the move, and I think there's other relief pitchers to be able to turn to that have some good upside, or at least have shown that they have been productive. Maybe not to the extent of dominance that Devin Williams has, but still really good relievers out of the bullpen. And I think there's still some really good arms out of the Dodgers bullpen, and they have the track record to be able to back up that they can develop a lot of relief pitchers. So they have alternatives.
That's a great point. They have that track record, definitely.
They have a track record of being able to develop guys. They have some guys that are in-house that are incredibly good and very successful, which means that if they are not comfortable with giving up a guy like a Gavin Lux who has 2 years of control, they don't necessarily have to do that. And I think
they're showing that.
And they very much are showing that. And they can turn and pivot to other guys depending on what they have. Devin Williams, incredible relief pitcher. And I think he's going to have a lot of success in New York because his track record shows that he's had a ton of success as a relief pitcher. But I think the Dodgers can find somebody else that maybe might not cost them what they don't want to get up. They don't have to be desperate in this pursuit for relief pitchers. This is very much
they can win a World Series easily with the roster they have right now.
That is absolutely correct.
Matter of fact, they're probably the favorites with the roster they have right now.
I think that's correct. I think this team is still good enough to win a World Series and probably would be the favorite to win the World Series just as they are right now.
Well, they're better than they were last year, right?
Mm-hmm. They added Blake Snell to their roster,
and they're going to add Tyler Glass now. Let's take it from a playoff scenario.
Yes.
They're going to make sure Tyler Glass now is healthy for the playoffs this year, right?
Yes.
And that Yoshinobu Yamamoto is totally healthy. Okay, and so you're basically trading Blake Snell for Walker Buehler, or maybe even a Jack Flaherty or whatever. So you won a World Series last year, and you're better. You're better, right? Of course, you don't have Teo yet, but so I might back up a little bit on that. But I think there's still a case to say that the Dodgers would be the favorites right now to win the World Series. Another thing about like going and getting a Helsley, I've heard this idea thrown around, like, what about taking on like a Nolan Arenado contract to help the Cardinals out with that deal, to kind of sweeten the deal to get Helsley? And the problem with those kind of multiple deals like that is the Dodgers don't have the roster space to do something like that.
Yeah.
They just don't. I mean, their currency right now is roster spots. So unless that trade is like a 1-for-1 trade, like you're going to put like an Arenado and Helsley on the 26, not just the 40-man, but the 26, because neither one of them have minor league options, then you are going to have to trade two guys that are on your roster that don't have minor league, your 26-man roster, that don't have minor league options to have it make any sense, because otherwise you're losing flexibility, something we know the Dodgers need to have.
Yeah, that I just don't see it as a possibility, mostly because with the Arenado spot, mostly because I'm penciling in Max Muncy as the third baseman. I think that he's earned that, and I think he's done a really good job. And I also don't see the other defensive position that he could go, possibly second base. Correct. Although even with that, he was aided out a lot by the shifts that they were able to have beforehand. There's not a shift anymore, and I wouldn't say that he's entirely more athletic than what he was back then. I think there could be some defensive concerns that you could potentially have on that aspect, moving him over there, and then just having two just exclusive third basemen could become a little bit of a question mark, especially with the lack of flexibility that you have and no designated hitter position open with Shohei Ohtani taking that.
That's why it didn't work.
I think that doesn't exactly map out. And also the Dodgers are not in a position where they have to make a move for Ryan Helsley, and they have to do whatever they have to do, take on a bigger contract. And also, we've seen just with this past week with Cody Bellinger going from the Chicago Cubs to the New York Yankees, the Yankees did not give up a lot for Bellinger. That was more or less a get rid of this contract for the Chicago Cubs and put Belly in a new position to where he might have a little bit more success. But the Yankees are taking on a 2-year, $25 million contract per year type of deal. And Nolan Arenado is $30 million, and then what, 20 million and 15 million. It's a lot of money to pay somebody like
they don't
that
care
for
if the player's
production.
Good. The only time the Yankees and the Dodgers care about something like that is if they think the player is going to substantially underproduce what they're paying. If they think the player will be worth it, like a Shohei Ohtani, the Dodgers and Yankees don't give a crap how much they cost, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And things just have to mix well with that. So I don't think they necessarily have to do it. There's other options that you can turn to as well, as far as really talented relievers, either on the free agency mark, like a Kirby Yates, or turning to other trade aspects. I know we talked in the past when Tanner Scott discussions, and I know that he did not have the greatest year in 2024, although a lot of the underlying metrics were really well, with like an Andrew Nardi.
That's always him, though. That's always him.
He's only had a couple of years in the league, so that could be another option. We've seen other people who, I mean, even like last year, Alex Vesia performed more in line with what the underlying metrics of previous years showed than what it was before. So with relievers, you're trying to predict what they're going to do in 2025.
It's a stock. Think of it like a stock.
Yes, and not just
who gives a crap what it's done in the past. All I care about, what's going to make me money, is what it does in the future. That's how you have to think about these contracts. They're a stock.
Yes, that's exactly right. And relievers, the reason why I don't think they like to invest one, I think primarily is because there's a lot more up and down that happens with that. And I just don't think, especially in the WAR aspect, there's not as big significant of an impact as you would get from an everyday position player or even like a starting pitcher being able to provide innings. So I think they would prefer to put their resources like that and then be able to help guys be able to develop into late inning relievers, which we talk a lot about guys in the system. We just talked to Dave Anderson, Great Lakes pitching coach, about the nasty guys. He did great.
Amazing.
Congratulations to him and Molly, by the way, on their newborn kid.
Awesome.
There's a bunch of nasty stuff within this system that they've helped develop. And not only have they done that, they've turned other guys into really good players. So they don't have to get desperate in this aspect. I know it feels like they might need to, or it would be a lot more comfy with the Tanner Scott in the back end of the bullpen. I know that would make my life a little bit easier. I'd sleep a little bit better at night. Or because there's, I think, this perceived thought that because he's done it in the past, he's going to do it going forward, which very well might be the case. And that probably is a good predictor of future success, but that's not the only thing that's going to predict future success. And I trust this organization to make the correct decisions and to draw the line where it needs to be drawn. I think they've done a really good job with that. I think their track record shows that they've done a really good job with that in all areas of what they do with player development, player evaluation, scouting, all of that stuff. I trust the organization really well to do what 100%. They believe is right.
100%. And having said that, the organization told you that they feel like they need a high leverage reliever by doing the Devin Williams talks, by being in a position to where Devin Williams thought he was going to Los Angeles. The organization, the one that you just said that you trust so much, the one that I talk about how much I trust. Matter of fact, talk to Steven Nelson, the play-by-play voice, tonight. Going to release that interview probably this weekend, maybe sometime. I'm going to try to figure out the best time that I can actually get eyeballs on it, because it's like 45 minutes, and it was just awesome. I had so much fun talking to him. But this organization that you and I trust so much, because we get to see it every day, we brag on how they're right almost all the time. They just told you they think they need another high leverage reliever. So the response to that, as a fan, there can only be one of those. Well, if you're telling me as a front office that we need a high leverage reliever and you didn't get Devin Williams, then who the hell is it going to be? That's the question that leaves whenever in this scenario. To me, I think that's a fair question, or a fair train of thought for Dodgers fans right now.
100% fair thought, and it's a question that, because they were in those discussions, I very much have too. So they're not going to get Devin Williams. He will stay a New York Yankee for the 2025 season. Yeah. Somebody else will take that ring, whether that's internal, whether that is external, remains a mystery. until then, but somebody's going to have to step up and be a high leverage arm. I think that message is very much clear from the Dodgers.
Hey, let's get into some of our chat. We have a wonderful crowd logged in. Showtime was wondering when the Yang interview would be posted on your website. I actually have not done it yet. And by the way, Show, if you hear this comment here, I've gotten a couple of messages from some fans that have sent me some questions to ask Hyun-Suk Yang. So if you have any questions out there that you want me to ask Hyun-Suk Yang, and whenever I interview him, it's going to be one of those written type interviews, then put it in the chat, or actually it'd be even better if you leave it in a regular comment. That way it's easier for me to access after this video archives, or you can email me at dodgersdaily73@gmail.com. But if you have any questions specifically that you want to know from Yang, then leave it as a comment, and I will ask him that question, and we'll get it answered for you. So, okay, Teo Hernandez overplaying his cards?
Seems like it a little bit. Honestly, I have no idea what's going on with the Teoscar Hernandez situation. It seems to be changing almost daily, or going back and forth between what's going on, what he's wanting, what the Dodgers potentially might be looking for, whether it's about the money, the deferred money, whether it's about the years or not, or whether this is just overblown a little bit just because it's free agency and there's things back and forth in negotiations.
Everything you said. Yes.
All of that is going on with Teoscar Hernandez. One thing is apparent right now, unless something has happened within the past 20 minutes or so since we've been live, Teoscar Hernandez is a free agent. He is still not a Los Angeles Dodger, and I'm checking my phone for notification, and no, I have not gotten a notification yet.
I'll stop typing then.
So nothing has been done quite yet on that end. So I don't know if this is something where he's playing it out. I don't know if there's something where the Dodgers are playing some hardball with that. Some of the reporting has been a little bit interesting back and forth. I don't know who released it, or I don't know the validity of all this. There potentially could be some type of concern with Teoscar wanting 3 years and about 22 to 24 million per year. That's what he's potentially wanting, and maybe the Dodgers are wanting one less year than that. I have no idea if that is accurate or not. If that
How much did you say a year?
3 years for about 22 to 24, $25 million.
You're the statistician. So that's all foreign language to me. You got to equate that.
Yeah. So that would be.
Is that worth it?
Yeah,
I mean,
so 3 years is $20 million would be $60, and then 3 years about $75 million would be $25 million per year.
Right. So I'm just saying, is he that caliber of player? Is that a good contract? Is he worth that?
I think if you ask most Dodgers fans going into this offseason, think they probably would have done that, and most Dodgers fans probably would
25
do something
a year?
like that for 3 years. And I think that's the key for a lot.
What kind of war do you have to put up to be worth $25 million?
For 25? Okay, so that's actually a really interesting question.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get to the nitty gritty with my statistician.
Yes,
here.
Yeah. So when we're talking about war, remember war. Cumulative statistic, you earn it with the amount of playing time that you get, which actually is a good measure when you're talking about money, because you actually want to get your money's worth, whether that comes in shorter spurts, but it's amazing shorter spurts, or whether you get a little bit more of a continuous success. And it's typically calculated, and this might be a little bit different, or it might be increasing a little bit with inflation. Typically it's about 8 to 9, maybe closer to 10 million per war that is given to a player. That's the value amount that you would get. So 22 to $25 million could be anywhere from 2.5 to 3 war-ish per season is basically what you would be paying Teoscar Hernandez for, which seems to be at least a little bit in line with what he's done in the past. I think some of Teoscar Hernandez...
He was 3.5 last year.
He was 3.5 last year.
He's been 4 at other times, and the 2 years before that, he was 1.9 and 2.9. So he's hit that target. Yeah, that $8 million per year would be around $24 million. He's hit that 3 out of the last 4 years.
He's done that, and that would get him, or that would conceivably get him to his pension year. So I think that's another incentive for Teoscar Hernandez to want that type of deal. If you're paying for what he's done in the past, I think that would be completely worth it. I think with I don't know exactly what the hesitation or the thinking behind that, besides what it could be potentially playing time for some other guys that could be on your roster. There's a reason why they signed Michael Conforto, and it's not to be just a bench bat. It's to play pretty consistently, get 400, 450, 500 plate appearances during this upcoming season because they paid him $17 million for the next season. That threw off a lot of different things and thought process of what I had with Teoscar Hernandez and bringing him back. And then you also have to think about, okay, what is the Dodgers as far as financial plans going forward into the future? I don't remember how this, or don't know exactly how this would fit in as far as future contracts will concern with this Dodgers as far as luxury tax concerns. Could it be something where they're trying to get at least under certain luxury tax?
Hell
during
no, they're trying to win World Series.
Well, yes, during the next.
I mean, if you can do that and stay under, good luck.
I'm not talking about 2025. They're way over that. I'm not even talking about in 2026, but possibly in 2027. Not under the bottom tier, but as far as under certain tiers, that could be something that they're looking at. There could be something where obviously guys internal, Andy Pages, Darton Rushing, there could be certain free agents that they potentially might want during upcoming seasons. I know Kyle Tucker will be a free agent after this upcoming season. He's been an incredibly solid player. There's a lot of things, which is why the Dodgers like the 1-year deals, because it opens up the options for you to make those decisions and for you to pivot. So it does not surprise me if the Dodgers are pushing for a 2-year deal. I don't think it's because Teoscar Hernandez is not worthy of a 3-year deal, but because the Dodgers like to have a lot of optionality and how they go and how they approach their free agents and how they go about the season. They're also, look, there's going to be some long-term concern, whether you think that's 3 years down the line, whether that's 4 or 5 years down the line, as far as Teoscar Hernandez, because of his limited defense out there, that he's got to produce with the bat. So there could be some question marks that he has. And ultimately, the market to this point hasn't been exactly what he's looking for. That could change at any moment, though, when a team misses out on another player and could get a little bit desperate. It only takes one team to be willing to pay a certain price, in which case he could be on a different team. So none of this is to say I don't want Teoscar Hernandez on this Dodgers team, nor do I think he won't be on the 2025 Dodgers. There are a lot of things to consider and things to go over if you are the Dodgers when you're talking about Teoscar Hernandez and bringing him back, and how many years. It's not just bring him back because we're trying to win in 2025. There's a lot of questions with longer term deals that you have to consider. And when it goes more than just the 1 year, and even just with 1 year deals, we talk a lot about opportunity cost. Oftentimes the Dodgers prefer to give the opportunities to the veterans because there's a little bit more predictability. At least that's what they believe. Higher floors is what they're thinking. I think that seems to be their approach that they like to take. Every contract has some sort of cost attached to it, whether that be price, obviously a price, and opportunity. And they have to consider all of those different options. And no real news, no real update on Teoscar. We'll be happy if and when he resigns, because I think it makes this Dodgers lineup better in the 2025 season. But also you have to consider, okay, what's that going to do to Pages and Rushing with Michael Conforto on this roster? And I think that's one of the bigger holdups on this roster right now. Yeah,
Teo just turned 32 in October. And if you just crunch the numbers of the league leaders in the different categories offensively, I've actually done this before. Really, after the age of 31 is when it. Now you can have outliers like a Freddie Freeman and people like that beat, but they are squarely beating the odds. The odds would tell you after about age of 31, there is going to be a regression, and for some people, it can be really, really big. And when you have holes in your game, like I think we'd all have to agree that Teo has holes. I mean, he swings and misses. He has periods where he struggles. When you're not just that guy like Freddie Freeman has no holes. I mean, he's perfect. I mean, everything he does is perfect. He can hit home runs. He can hit for average. He can put the ball in play. Freddie Freeman can do it all. He doesn't have holes. That's why he's able to beat the odds, right? But when you're a guy that's not perfect like Teoscar Hernandez, I'm just telling you, the odds of the game would tell you that ages 32, 33, and 34 are going to see some sort of regression and even possibly a big regression in his offensive game as his skills deteriorate. Because a guy that already has holes to begin with when they're in their prime, it's like an eighth of an inch is the difference between a pop-up and a home run, right?
Yeah.
So take that same concept into a deterioration of a skill. An eighth of an inch of a deterioration in a skill, which is very minute, means the difference in guys hitting home runs and hitting pop-ups as they get older, right? That's what happens to guys. And so I can understand the argument. Now, let's be clear. I want Teo. I mean, I've said that all offseason. I'm not trying to make a case not to get Teo. What I'm trying to say is there is risk involved in signing a guy who's already 32 years old to a 3-year contract. It's just from an odds perspective, it's just not in the wheelhouse of the Dodgers.
Yeah, it's not. I actually went over this a little bit on my show, not this past week, because this past week, actually, if you didn't get a chance to watch the show on Monday, I actually provided a little bit of a really cool tool for you guys in the description of that video, where you can actually look back at every single player that has debuted since 2015 in the organization that they grew up with, as far as the minor league level, what they're able to produce and where the Dodgers rank, so you can get a little bit of an idea of how the Dodgers are doing on the hitting development side. A couple weeks before that, I actually looked at by age for that season. So like, for example, the age 32 season, how many players were at a certain level of production. And the level of bar that I set for the production was an OPS plus of 120. OPS plus, think of it exactly like WRC plus. 100 is league average. Anything above that is really good. So 20% better hitter, which Teoscar Hernandez over for this past 5 seasons have been 130 WRC plus.
And he's going to have to be 20% above league average on offense, because he's going to be probably 5-10% below average on defense.
Defense
to average
could
those
be,
two out.
Yes, right? Yeah. So obviously the offense is weighted a little bit more than the defensive side, because you don't
the
get
defense
everything.
Is harder to. I get it.
Yes,
people are screaming at me. Defense is hard to measure. Yeah.
But I think that's a really good aspect. He's got to be productive offensively. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to read you since 2000. So since the 2000 season, how many players from age 32 to 35. I'll go ahead. I will go ahead and go to 36. So that would be a 5-year deal for Teoscar. I don't think that's going to happen, nor do I think that's in the price range, but just to let you know. And then we'll go for a player who strikes out similar to about as much as he does, with the actual number of players who have met the bar of 120 OPS plus. So at age 32, there were 600 or 468 players who had 250 or more plate appearances. 93 of those had a 120 OPS plus. The next season, which the numbers dip down a little bit.
Say that one more time. You lost me a little bit there.
Yeah. Since the year 2000, players at their age 32 season that have had a 120 or more OPS plus.
As an average for their whole career, or just for one season?
Just for one season. Just for one season, because you're going to be paying for the age 32 season, not for what he did beforehand. Yeah. There's 93 players that have met that bar out of 468.
Not very many.
For 33, 91.
Wow.
For 34, 61. And now the totals are dipping down a little bit, and there's less player pool to look at. So there's 302 players, which means there's less players that are actually getting to that plate appearance.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. 31's the cutoff, man. I'm telling you, I've done this research.
Yeah, and then 35, 61 again. But once you get to 36, there's just 26 players since the year 2000. So 2020 or 2000 all the way through 2024. If you look at players, which this is decreasing the sample size as well, the percentages are around 20-ish%. They dip down a little bit as you go by age. Age 32, there were 121 that met similar-ish to the strikeout numbers. It's weird because the tool that I was using does not have strikeout percentage, which made it incredibly frustrating. I had to do at-bats divided by strikeouts. So I set that as 4 at-bats divided by strikeouts. So, it's just you feel sorry for me if you want. That gets roughly around what you're looking for. There was just 121 players that met 250 plate appearances in that strikeout total, and only 25 of them had a 120 OPS plus.
Oh, really?
And then it dips down to 21 at age 33, and then 12 at 34, and then 13 at 35. So what this is going to show you is there are just not a lot of players. There's not a lot of players that get to their age 32 to 34, 35, 36 seasons. Right. There's just a smaller sample size of players that are able to do that.
Because they regress.
The players that are able to get to that and do 250 plate appearances, you got to give them credit because they had stability and they were able to do that. But even of that, there's still a limited amount of sample of those players who are able to produce at the exact same level as other ones. And you look at the peak, typically the peak during these years, as far as the percentage of players that are able to meet that bar, gets really high around the age 27, 28, 29, 30, maybe even 31 type seasons. And then you start seeing a little bit of a dip off. Not to say that this is going to happen to Teoscar Hernandez, but you have to believe very much in the at-bat that Teo has going forward, if depending on how many years that you want to give him. And especially, and I talk about this quite a lot on my show, there very much is a need for this Dodgers team, just looking at the age of the players that are on this roster, for some youth at some point. Great. At some point, the Dodgers are going to need younger players to add onto this team to make sure that
you're looking at that from a statistical analytical perspective, from somebody's looking at this from a modern analytics perspective.
Yes, and you're looking at a lot of these players, they're going to be a little bit more on the decline, which means it's not just going to be Teo that's going to be going against those odds. It's going to be a lot of other players as well. Now, I think Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani probably have a good chance of overcoming those odds. But you add more players.
They're tremendous. They're Hall of Fame players.
But those are the holes. Those are the type of players that are able to succeed at that point.
But Austin, they may regress as much for their skills, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But their regression is starting here, and then it's coming down to there, which is still above league average, which you can accept.
Yes.
Whereas if you have a Teoscar Hernandez who only starts 20% above league average in his prime, and then he regresses, now we're below league average, but we're paying him. These are just all the issues that I promise you that they're working through, and we're kind of trying to take you through the war room of talking about Teoscar Hernandez and what's taking so long. These are all the conversations that are being had right now. But hey, before we get to more of that, Christopher Navarro, he has a super chat for you, Austin. By the way, anytime that you tag Austin, that's good. If you give if you super chat on Austin's show on Monday, that goes directly to him. Austin gets 100% of that. If you have a question directly for Austin, that goes 100% to Austin. So make sure if you want more money put in Austin's pocket, which makes my heart delight right there, make sure and tag him on that. So that's great. That's a great job there, Christopher. Austin, this is for you. Could you do a quick comparison between Arenado and Muncy, bat and glove? Thanks and Merry Christmas. That's from Christopher Navarro. He is an absolute rock star. $10. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I will start pulling up some of those numbers. It might take me a minute to be able to pull that. It was awesome because Christopher Navarro, I think, did the exact same thing. But he had a really good point as far as Blake Trinan and his sweeper and looking at Devin Williams' changeup and just some of the numbers. And Blake Trinan,
1 second before you move on. Anthony Santander is exactly 2 years younger than Teo Hernandez. They were both born in October, and Santander just turned 30. Teo just turned 32. So I wanted to cover that.
Yes. Yeah. So he's another free agent that the Dodgers could pivot to, especially if they pivot away from a Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously hit a ton of home runs for the Baltimore Orioles last year. So really talented player. I think he's going to get a solid deal somewhere. I don't know if that's going to be for the Dodgers or not. Really solid player. Looking at Max Muncy and Nolan Arenado, first we'll look at this past season because it's the most recent sample that we can look at. One, Max Muncy only played in 73 games. I think he's going to play for a lot more during this upcoming season. I'm not anticipating any sort of injury. So you're dealing with a little bit of a smaller sample, 293 plate appearances. But during Max Muncy's 2024 season, 135 WRC plus, batted 232. 358 on base percentage, which you look at the 232, you're like, that's not very good. And some of his batting averages have not been good. You add on a 15% walk percentage, which he does consistently every single year, makes the on-base percentage look really good. And especially when you add that slugging percentage of 494, makes his offensive game really, really flourish. And when you don't have exclusively Max Muncy players on your team that only hit home runs or walk or strike out, the three true outcome type of players, I think you can deal
with one or two of those profiles.
You can deal with some of these players because his power does make an impact for this team.
And it's balanced out by Tommy Edman and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani, other guys that don't have that same profile. And before you get going, hey, this is a great comment from a rock star, Matt Kramer. Did you know that Max Muncy had the third best OPS among third basemen and was in the 50th percentile of fielding? So he had a very good year.
Yeah, he had a very good year. That's what I was about to go. His outs above average was at 0 last year, which is right around the 50th percentile. Defensive metric on Fangraphs put him at 1.3. Previously had been negative, so there could be some regression back towards the negative this upcoming season, especially as he gets older. I think that's what some of the projections are saying, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. He was when he was on the field, he made a lot of strides last year, and you got to give Max Muncy credit for what he's doing. Still not the greatest defender in the world at third base. Nolan Arenado has been one of the better defensive third basemen in the game of baseball. Last year put up a 9.6 defensive metric according to Fangraphs, which equated to, if I can go ahead and scroll down and my screen can actually load, equated to 9 outs above average last year, which is well above league average. He's a lot
better than Muncy defensively.
He's a lot better than Muncy defensively, but what he doesn't and what has gone down pretty dramatically over the past couple of seasons has been his power numbers. If you look at his home run totals, it went from 2022 30 to 2023 26 to last year just 16, and all roughly around the exact same amount of plate appearances, which dropped his ISO numbers, dropped a lot of his production. Very much is not the same type of player that Muncy is. He doesn't walk nearly as much. Last year at about a 7% clip, which is a little bit below league average. Strikeout percentage is nice. Last year, a little bit under 15%. But that comes with a little less power. So you're getting a completely different type of player, which equated last year to a 3.1 WAR according to Fangraphs. Last year, Muncy in about 300 less plate appearances put up 2.4. So Max Muncy was on pace to have a much better season WAR-wise than Nolan Arenado was. Just he didn't have the sample size to be able to get to that measure. Now, we don't know what would happen in those 300 other plate appearances, but his projection would have him a little bit better. That's not to say that he will be the better player during the 2025 season, but with Max Muncy, who's only getting paid, I believe it's $14 million in 2025, has a $10 million club option in 2026, significantly more affordable than Nolan Arenado, who's going to be paid 30-something million in 2025, 27 in 2026, and then another 15 in 2027 with his age 33 to 35 seasons.
Oh, that's a lot for somebody that age.
Yes, so that's the thing with Nolan, and it's his age 34 through 36.
You go get
seasons.
him and Teo Hernandez. Boy, you're playing with fire. I mean,
you are if you're doing it like that, especially with the financial commitment that you would have to give them, and because that would limit your ability to pivot elsewhere. I think Max Muncy does is because he's been productive and he's on a team-friendly deal, the Dodgers have the ability to pivot different directions depending on how they go. They could go and get a Max Muncy and a really solid reliever if they think that's in the best interest of the money that they would get with that. I don't think the Dodgers are in a position to acquire every single big contract that they can get. Now, Arenado, really talented player. There is potentially a world that the Dodgers could do that. I just don't see that as any realistic possibility at this point because I think Max Muncy is the third baseman for the Dodgers.
If they do it, it better have Ryan Helsley attached to it at a very cheap price, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the only way that Nolan Arenado makes sense.
Yes, it's going to be.
So let me ask you this. So let me give you the nuts and bolts. Dodgers don't give two craps about money, okay? Yes. They're swimming in money. They don't care if they're paying 50 cents on the dollar because of the luxury tax or whatever it may be. I'm not great with all those numbers. We can have a show on the luxury tax and all that if we want to put everybody to sleep on that.
Oh, boy, that would be a fun show.
Right,
wouldn't it be?
Right, but just know the Dodgers are going to be over for a while, okay? And they don't give a crap. I mean, they would probably rather, but do you want to win a World Series or do you want to meet the luxury tax? I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we know which one probably is more profitable. So let's just cut through all that crap. Let's take away all the variables. And I'm telling Austin Brubaker, this is 12 and under baseball, and I'm drafting players, okay, that don't get paid to play. Which one am I drafting, Nolan Arenado or Max Muncy?
Probably Max Muncy right now.
Oh,
that's a tough one.
So you're
for me.
taking him straight up, not even just with the financials to it.
Yeah.
You love those profiles.
Well,
you're a sucker for dudes that walk and hit home runs, man. Right?
There is a lot of me that likes
me
that
on board with it slowly but surely, Brubaker.
Yes, yeah. I wouldn't draft Max Muncy 9 times and have that be on my team. I still like those that have more balanced profiles, but you need at least a little bit of power to add to this team, and I know what I'm getting from Max Muncy there. Now, I could be argued either way. This is a tough conversation.
You're kind of pissed at me right now. I put you on the spot, didn't I?
I know. Yeah, we'll have to talk about this after the show.
I'm getting ready to get my ass ripped as soon as we log off there. Why the hell did you put me on the spot?
That totally sounds like something I would do.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking there. Hey, Matt Kramer, our rock star Matt Kramer. I was just talking about how he was a rock star a minute ago. Can you guys discuss how the Dodgers 6-man rotation should or shouldn't be an advantage to land Sasaki? Seems like a comforting feature and relieves some pressure to adjust to the major leagues. That's what they do in the NPB. And so that's something that would be a zero adjustment for him. And so I would have to think the 6-man rotation is something that is very attractive to him. And I don't think anybody else, because they don't have a two-way player, has the mathematical equation the Dodgers do to have a 6-man rotation. Now, I think you can do 6-man rotations for like short periods, right? Whenever you have to. But the Dodgers are going to be able to do it all year long and effortlessly, smoothly, because they have the 14 pitchers and the 13 position players. They don't lose numbers on it, right? So I think that has to be something that's attractive to Sasaki.
Yeah, and it doesn't work out with math unless you do something like the Lansing Lugnuts did at the minor league level in the 2024 season, where they had they had a normal amount of starters, and like 4 out of the 6 days of the week were piggyback starts. And so they had a whole bunch of guys that were basically starters in their bullpen that could pitch length after that, and they just let them pitch with length. The math doesn't really work out like that. Even with a 6-man rotation with Shohei Ohtani, I think you still need some length to add into that bullpen. Certainly, it is an attractive feature, I would assume, for Roki Sasaki, because he would have more rest, more time in between starts, and less bullets thrown between outings. I think that is something that would be really appealing, especially with all of the different injuries that have happened throughout the game of baseball. Going out there, getting into a environment that is familiar to him, where he's pitching once a week, however the math is going to work out with a 6-man rotation. I think that familiarity could be a little bit easier of an adjustment for him. And then you add in playing with Shohei Ohtani, you're playing with Yoshi Yamamoto. I think it would be the best situation for him. Now, he would have to get comfortable because he wouldn't be the star pitcher on this Dodgers staff. I don't know if that's something that he's wanting or looking for, in which case, if that's what he's looking for, the Dodgers aren't the place for him to go right now, because the Dodgers have a lot of star power in their starting rotation. But I think that creates more options, and I think that creates a spot for Roki Sasaki to be on this Dodgers team. I think if they add him, this offseason has been an incredible thing because of the upside that we've heard about from Sasaki. We heard about upside with Yoshi Yamamoto. He came over and performed really well for the Dodgers team, and I think there's still more to be had in the tank for Yoshi Yamamoto during the upcoming seasons. And if you get Roki Sasaki, especially for the price that you're going to pay for him, which is practically nothing because when he's coming over, you would get him, add him to the mix when he is ready to come and add to the mix. I think it would be a slam dunk. I don't know. I think that a lot of this is comfortability with the Dodgers. I think he's comfortable in LA, comfortable with 6-man rotation, but how much does he want to be the ace, the reliable starter on the staff? I think is a big question with Roki Sasaki, and part of the decision that he's going to have to make. Also, where he's comfortable with in the United States or wherever he wants to go. He's establishing a home for himself for at least the next relative near future. So He's got a lot of decisions that he's got to make. I don't know Roki personally, so I don't have no idea, no insight as far as any decision that he's going to make. But certainly if they get him, I think it's slam dunk, great offseason for the Dodgers.
Yeah. We have a question about Nick Pivetta, and you mentioned the different costs. Hey, there could be a cost in years. That could be the biggest cost to a contract. There could be cost in AAV, meaning you're paying a player a bunch per year, so that could be your cost. And then also, if you go get a guy in the margins, there can be opportunity cost. So we have a question. I say that we have a question about Nick Pivetta. This is a guy that I think would be a margins type of guy in terms of a pitcher. Pivetta, 4.14 ERA. His expected ERA is 3.59, and his home run per 9 average is almost 2 last year, and his home run for fly ball rate is about a point higher than league average. So to me, a guy like Nick Pivetta, I would pass in the sense that I think the Dodgers, I don't like the opportunity cost to go get somebody like that. Do you?
It would depend on what exactly you're getting. Last year, he spent a lot of time in the rotation, so this could be one of those things where they are
go
not
both ways. But do you need another starter type guy? That's the advantage to him, is that he's both starter and reliever. But do you need that combo guy?
Yeah, I say no, but also recognize that the Dodgers went through how many pitchers last year? 40-something pitchers last year.
True.
So there is always that concern. So I'm not going to blame anybody from the Dodgers to be like, we need a lot of these starters, which I think is in part one of the reasons why there could have been some hesitation to go out and get a Devin Williams, because what the Brewers got was a big league caliber starting pitcher. Yes, it's just for 1 year, but somebody who can go out there and give a lot of innings. And if you are the Dodgers, yes, they have a lot of guys that deserve to have opportunities. And I would love it if Landon Knack got every single day starts for Milwaukee, if he was able to do that everyday experience at the big league level. If you're the Dodgers organization and you have a guy that you have the ability to keep at the minor league level who's incredibly talented, not to say that Landon Knack won't spend time at the big leagues or won't start the season at the big leagues, and perhaps
he was half and half last year. Exactly half and half. Yep.
He was half and half last year and has the ability to go down if needed. The Dodgers need to have some of those guys, and they need to have depth, and especially with a lot of their depth being injured or being on the injured list, I think they want to keep onto as many guys as they possibly can. So if they went out for a Nick Pivetta, as long as it's not more than a 1 year type of deal, I would question it, because I would question the opportunities for some of the guys, like continuing the development of Landon Knack, continuing the development of Justin Robleski. But I also want 100% blame the Dodgers for doing a move like that, because he would be able to provide some innings. Last year, pitched 145. Year before that, 142, 179, 155 during the past 4 seasons. So he's been somebody who can provide a lot of innings. Long-term answer, perhaps there's some upside, because you look at some of those numbers. His Sierra number was like 331, and so that's a really good number that you can look at. Sierra being an ERA estimate, which similar to FIP and XFIP, it's one of the better ones Sierra is. So that could be a reason that you could look at towards bringing a guy like that, but he could potentially be looking for multiple years, and I don't think looking for multiple years is in what the Dodgers are looking at. In which case, if they were looking for guys with multiple years, I think Walker Buehler would be a guy they would consider bringing back. But because I don't think that
Good
because of a lot of guys coming back from injury that I think they're expecting to rely on, and some younger guys coming up, and with other guys already being on longer term deals, I don't think they're looking for the multi-year deal at this point. I think they're looking for a little bit more shorter term, unless there's a special case, like maybe a Corbin Burnes. You would take him for 2 years or 3 years if it ever came to that.
Yeah. So why do you think, in your opinion, the Dodgers signed Chris Taylor? We have this question in the chat here. Why do you think the Dodgers signed Chris Taylor to age 35? Or, I mean, was that just one of those just kind of buyer's remorse type deals?
I think it's more looking in hindsight. Right, a lot of versatility. He was valuable for the Dodgers at the time that he signed the contract, and it's, I think it was a 4-year, $60 million deal. I wouldn't imagine that it would hurt you too much. Right. But that becomes a question, hindsight, with looking at different deals in the future. Like, for example, are we going to look 3-4 years down the line at Tommy Edman and say, oh, why'd the Dodgers sign him to that type of deal? Well, at the time, the Dodgers did not have a center fielder. They did not have a shortstop, and they needed to be able to plug in those type of holes. Will he be as productive as he is right now later down the line towards the end of that contract? Probably not. But right now he feels a need for what the Dodgers have. With Chris Taylor, he was a very valuable part of this organization beforehand, and he fit the versatility need that the Dodgers had previously. Ideally, the Dodgers would have liked to sign him to a shorter term deal with less AAV, and now this is what you have to pay for on the other side. Now, luckily with the Dodgers, with Chris Taylor, just one more year that you have to deal with the money that he has. But that shows you the cost that you deal with for long-term contracts. If it's always we need to win a World Series, we need to win World Series, pay whatever costs, there comes a time when that cost does come back to bite you, or could come back to bite you, especially when you're dealing with a lot of high risk and variability on the back end of deals with players that are getting a little bit older. And certainly the Dodgers are playing with a lot of risk with some of the players that they have signed to longer term deals, though those players are incredibly talented. So you would anticipate them working out. With Chris Taylor, at least last year, did not work out. We'll see if it works out in 2025 for him.
Till he quit swinging straight up with the ball. I'm just telling you, those guys that he was in that generation that totally bought into the launch angle thing. And while he was in his prime skill set, it was fine. He could make enough contact to where the boom and bust nature of the way that he swings straight up the ball was fine for him. But what everybody always knew was, like, for instance, let me give you a perfect example. Those guys that swing with a negative bat angle the entire time, like they dump the barrel in the back and then swing negatively with a negative bat angle all the way through the zone, and then also lift their hands. That's they're trying to create that higher launch angle, right? That's what you've heard forever, the launch angle swing. Okay, that is Chris Taylor to a T. So he is that exact generation of guys that were taught to dump the barrel, swing with a negative bat angle, lift the hands, because they were taught that's matching the plane of the pitch. That's a whole different story for a whole different show, but those guys, when they are outmatched whatsoever by the pitcher, like if the pitcher could throw 1 more mile an hour faster than what their bat speed can handle, they would swing and miss, right? So what those guys would do is they would feast off the guys that they could bully and overpower, right? So I'm giving that anecdote, or I'm saying that to say, whenever your skills deteriorate, for guys that dump the barrel in the back and swing with a negative bat angle and then also lift the hands, it is very predictable that if their skills deteriorate even minutely, that what's going to happen to Chris Taylor is going to happen to them, because now, even if they're slightly overmatched, they don't have a mechanical system that can keep their barrel in the zone long enough to let them overcome being overmatched. And that's exactly what happened to Chris Taylor. I hope that he's able to figure some things out to give the Dodgers some production next year, because he's going to be on the team. So, hey, I'm just all about, hey, let's root for Chris Taylor at this point.
Yep, I'm absolutely the same way. If Chris Taylor is good for the Dodgers in 2025, that is good for the Dodgers. And so I'm rooting for him and hoping that he's able to succeed. And I'm anticipating that he will be part of the Dodgers team because of the money that they're paying for him this upcoming season. These are things that most organizations you kind of just deal with. And especially with a player that is as established into the Dodgers culture as Chris Taylor is, I think he's going to be part of the Dodgers team. I don't think it's going to be something where they designate him for assignment. Although, if you do the math, if you bring in a Teoscar Hernandez and you bring in a Kike Hernandez, I think that kicks out both James Outman and Andy Pages to the minor leagues, in which case there's some very serious questions that you have as far as the roster availability for players on this team.
Absolutely. Hey, I'll tell you another thing. I'm going to release my conversation with Steven Nelson. He goes through all of his big calls, the did he calls, on the Ohtani call. Ohtani is inevitable. The back to back, if you remember that one, he goes through all of his calls. He talks about what it's like to broadcast a World Series. He talks about blacking out on the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam. It's like, I don't even know what the hell I was saying. It wasn't even professional. It was like I was just screaming, and I kind of woke up and felt sorry for Rick Monday, who was sitting next to me. It was just awesome. It was such a human interview. It is an amazing. He did an amazing job. It's not because of me. It's because he showed his human side. If you guys give this Steven Nelson interview a chance, when you see it dumped onto the YouTube page here, please check that out and stick with it, even if you have to watch it in different segments, because Steven Nelson is special, man. And the way that he did this interview is special. So, like I always do, I'm telling a short story and making it long, right? Okay. And so one of the parts of this interview was I asked him about the off season. Okay. And he went right away to Michael Conforto, and literally he did not hide it. He said, I am so pumped for Michael Conforto. You know, Steven Nelson actually covered on beat Oregon State whenever he was working up in Eugene, Oregon. And so he got to see Michael Conforto's entire college career, right? And so Conforto is like a stud, and then he goes pro, and then he's going to be really good, and then he gets just a really devastating injury. And so Steven Nelson, if you just watch the interview, he'll tell you he's convinced that this guy is healthy and that he has a chance to be a damn good offensive baseball player for the Dodgers this next season. So it caught my eye.
Yeah, there's a lot of underlying metrics that back it up, too, with what he was talking about with Michael Conforto. And there's very much a reason why the Dodgers paid him as much as they did, $17 million for 1 year. It's because they believe in Michael Conforto and his abilities. And I'm excited to see him, somebody that following a little bit from the outside for a while now. But now that he's on a team that I've been rooting for, got a reason to pay attention to him a little bit more, and I think his skill set is going to work really well and complement this lineup really well. He's not pressured to be the main anchor in this lineup, not at all. He is going to be a regular contributor, and I think he's going to really help. And the Dodgers last year took a chance on an outfielder for 1 year, and it worked out incredibly well. I think for this year with Conforto, similar-ish money, $17 million versus last year, $23 million for Teo. I'm expecting not the exact same results, but very good results for Michael Conforto, and I think there's a lot of potential in his bat.
Yeah. Oregon State's in Corvallis, I know that, but the publication that was having the beat on Oregon State was located in Eugene. So it was an organization located, kind of like the Daily Oklahoman is in Oklahoma City, which is butts right up next to Norman, which is OU. But they run a beat on OSU and OU. So that's what he was doing there. So, hey, just heard that Andre Lipsius, at least Mr. Classic, is saying this. Andre Lipsius went to the White Sox. Good for him.
Congratulations. I'm excited about that. I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for Andre, or at least I'm praying for more opportunities for Andre. I talked a little bit about this on Monday. I just want him to get playing time at the major league level. He earned it with what he did at the minor league level in Oklahoma City last year. I was not very happy that the Dodgers didn't provide him an opportunity when they had an opening at third base, but I'm glad he's going to White Sox. I think there should be plenty of opportunities there.
Yeah, so how concerned are you about the pitchers? We have a comment here that from Nando, all the Dodgers pitchers minus Snell are coming back from injuries. How concerning is that to you? course, Yamamoto finished the season last year, but
yes, he finished the season, and there's a lot of pitchers that dealt with injuries, and even Blake Snell last year missed some time, didn't have the full season, and so this goes back to the conversation that we talked about Nick Pivetta. I don't blame the Dodgers if they want to go out and add additional pitching. I think there's a reason why they keep a lot of their arms with minor league options, and I think there's a reason I think they're going to leave a spot or two open on the 40-man roster once they move guys onto the 60-day injured list, specifically for pitchers that they can move up and down. Yeah, I think absolutely that is a concern for me, and they have to do everything that they can to make sure that their starters, their ace level starters, actually make it to the postseason this upcoming season. Yes, the Dodgers showed that they can win a World Series when they only have 3 starters, but that is not an easy
don't do that again.
way.
No, don't do that again.
Not.
You're not going to do
absolutely
that. You're not
not
going to get away with that twice.
No, you're not going to get away with that again. And I think other teams, especially with the other teams trying to make moves, like Chicago's going for it this year. The Cubs are going for it. There's other teams that, good for the Cubs. There's other teams that are going for it. Obviously, the Mets signed Juan Soto. They want to go and win. There's a lot of other teams that want to win the National League this upcoming season. I do not want to deal with just 3 starters. I want all of the ace level starters as healthy as possible. But certainly, I think there's going to be injuries this upcoming season. So how do you brace for that? I think is add a lot of depth and make sure that you have a lot of arms as possible. That's really the only option at this point, and I don't think there's any other alternative or secret formula to keep these guys healthy. There's really not a whole lot of options that the Dodgers can turn to, so it's adding depth and crossing your arms, crossing your fingers, and hoping and praying.
Yeah, absolutely. Devin Williams has 2.1 innings, postseason innings. So I mean, they haven't been good, but can you make anything out of 2.1 innings?
No, not really.
As far as
I wouldn't call that a good sample size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could take a whole lot of that. Okay, so as far as the opportunity for anybody at the minor leagues, I mean, who are we looking at maybe getting some chances this year, you think?
Pitching wise, I think there could be a lot of different options. They are going to be sporadic options because I think there's going to be a lot of moving up and down and depending on who's healthy and where there's going to be needs. But you look at all the guys that are on the 40-man roster that have already made their major league debut.
By the way, one second. I'm sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but hey, Hep C says it doesn't really matter anymore because the Dodgers won the World Series, but giving Biggio a chance over Lipsius was silly. I could not agree more with that. Yes. I have bitched and moaned to no end about that. That's a very good point there, Hep. I totally agree. But continue on, Austin.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Talked about that on Monday's show as well. But as far as guys that
did you? Good. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because I think the news dropped Sunday or Monday. With pitchers that could potentially debut, looking guys on 40-man roster, I think Nick Frasso, when he's healthy, could make his debut. Jack Dreyer, I think, is definitely going to make his debut at some point this season when they are needing some healthy arms. And I'm so pumped. I'm so excited about that. And then you look at some other guys that are going to need to be added to be protected from the Rule 5 draft.
Alex Freeland.
You're looking, what was that?
Alex Freeland would be the first one.
Alex Freeland is one of them. Dalton Rushing also needs to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. Now,
he will be. Those two both will be.
Those two will definitely be protected from the Rule 5 draft this upcoming season. There could be some questioning. I think it depends on injuries, and then it also depends on specific timing of when they want to bring them up, because there is a certain number of days that you have to be optioned down to use a minor league option. One of the
I think it's
comments,
10 days.
I for pitchers, I think it's like 20 days. For position players, I think it's like 10 days. So it could be something where you might not see some of these guys until late in the season.
I think you'll see Dalton Rushing before then. I know he's not on the 40. I could be wrong, but
yes, I think depending on when he's ready and depending on what the Dodgers' offensive needs are, that could be a consideration. But
a lot of it's going to happen depending on what happens to Teo or if they find another outfielder, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think you're definitely going to see Dalton Rushing this upcoming season, and I think there's so many reasons.
You're going to see Alex Freeland. You're going to see Alex Freeland.
Yeah. And you're going to see
Alex Freeland is going to make his major league debut if he's healthy.
Yes,
because it's the Edgardo Henriquez effect in the sense that they're going to have to protect him in the next offseason anyways.
Yes.
So why not just put him on the 40-man roster in September and let him have 10 to 15 major league games? See if he's any good. Maybe he can turn into Corey Seager and be a playoff like Edgardo Henriquez did. But so why? There's no reason if you're going to have to protect a guy in the offseason for the Rule 5 and put him on the 40-man anyways, there's no reason not to do it and give him a chance to get some innings or get some at-bats at the major league level at the end of that year. Just exactly like they did Edgardo Henriquez.
So here's another thing that's going to be of consideration. Both Austin Barnes and Miguel Rojas will be free agents after the 2025 season. They are both 35-ish years of age. Yeah. They are not going to be long-term solutions, which means the Dodgers are going to have to find answers for their bench for the 2026 season. So whether that's to replace them midseason, I don't necessarily see that as the option. But as far as finding replacements for them, and also when talking about Alex Freeland specifically, we talk about there's a lot of talk about the Dodgers and their long-term future at the shortstop position and whether they need to go out and acquire somebody and able to fill in that shoes. There could come a point if Alex Freeland, especially if he has a lot of the success that he had early in the 2024 minor league season, or
which came in AA, not in AAA,
or if it was a continuation of his last 2 weeks, which I believe he put up a 161 WRC plus over his final 2 weeks, starting to figure out, and his strikeout percentage was like 17% over the past 2 weeks in AAA.
Austin. Nice work.
If he's able to have a continuation of that, could the Dodgers take an extended time, especially if they're doing well, especially if it looks like they're going to win the division, and see, could this be an option for the long-term future at the shortstop position?
We know it's an option.
Or are we going to have to pivot somewhere else during the next offseason? I think they potentially could be looking for some answers mid-season, which could lead to some extended runtime for him, could lead to some extended runtime for a Dalton Rushing, so they can get a little bit of an eye and see, with a lot of openings, with also Chris Taylor, they're probably not going to pick up his option during the next that up as well. So there's going to be opportunities opened up in the future, and I think the Dodgers, with some of the people that they have internal, are probably going to want to figure out what are they going to be able to do in the future. So I think that's going to lead to some opportunities from these guys, or at least I'd hope it leads to some opportunities, because I think it would be in the best interest for the Dodgers if these guys are able to step up and fill in these roles. And the Dodgers need to give them a chance to be able to at least see if they're going to be able to step up. Because, I mean, you look at it, I think it was released, there's somebody on Twitter, I think TJ Stats is the guy, released some of the percentiles at the AAA level for Dalton Rushing. And it's like you see on Baseball Savant, and it's all red. Just ridiculous what he's been able to do, even with what he's doing at AAA. So there's a lot of reason to be excited about these guys, but also there can be purpose behind at-bats. And if they earn it, if they're able to have a lot of success in Oklahoma City, the Dodgers are going to have to add them onto the 40-man roster at some point anyway. If there's a roster spot opened up for them, that's not going to significantly hinder the major league roster, I think that very well could be worth it.
Problem with Alex Freeland to this point, there's not very many. He's a great player. I mean, I think the biggest problem is the swing and miss. No, I think that's pretty obvious. We've covered that before, but great player, great athlete, over 30 stolen base potential, potential to be possibly a 30-30 type guy sometime in his career. He at least has that type of power potential. Yes. I could see him getting hot one year and popping 30 home runs, right? Now, if that's the same year he also steals 30 bases, who knows? But I think he has the potential at hitting 30 home runs at least once in his career, and then also stealing 30 bases at least once in his career. Now, if those two match up, now maybe I'm a little bit too ambitious, but I just think he has a world of power. So nobody's higher on Alex Freeland, his work ethic, the type of person he is. He's a competitive dude, just like Dalton Rushing.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he holds his teammates accountable. Like, if they lose a game and teammates aren't pissed about it, then he's going to let them know, right? He's that type of fiery. here's the probably to me, the biggest problem you have with integrating Alex Freeland is that his entire minor league career, he's played only 8 games at second base. He's played only 7 games at third base. So there has been literally zero positional versatility. The one thing that got like a Miguel Vargas to the major leagues and got him an extended opportunity was that he grew up a third baseman and played second base, right? How did that work out for him? Not very well, right?
Yeah.
So to incorporate Alex Freeland, it needs to either be, it has to be a shortstop. I can't take the Gavin Lux 2.0 and the Miguel Vargas 2.0 and I understand positional versatility, but still when a guy's incorporating into the major leagues, it's hard enough to begin with. And then when you're making them do it at a position they're not comfortable defensively, it just adds layers to that difficulty level. So if it's going to be incorporated to me for Alex Freeland, it has to be at shortstop. It can't be like, oh, well, since he's good, can we make him a second baseman? My opinion, no. Are you seeing what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm totally seeing what you're saying, which I think is in talk within the organization. I think one of the reasons why it's unlikely at this point that you'll see Dalton Rushing start the season at the major league roster because he's still learning the outfield position. You want to make sure that he's comfortable in the outfield position, not throw him completely under the fire. And also you have to hit these incredible pitchers at the big league level. Talking about Alex Freeland, I actually got to see I think every single one of those appearances at second base because at the beginning of the Great Lakes season in 2024, both him and Noah Miller were on the team. Noah Miller, incredible defensive shortstop. Alex Freeland, very underrated in his ability at the shortstop position. Is really, really good at the shortstop. He's a great athlete. Which means I think it's a little bit easier to transition from shortstop into like a second base. He looked solid from what I saw. Very limited sample size, only 7 games because he hit like 212 OPS or WRC plus when he was with Great Lakes during the month that he was there. Just ridiculous. And so they had to call him up right away. And then he was the everyday shortstop for them. The good thing about Alex Freeland is I think there is a hole at the shortstop position long-term for the Dodgers. Whereas for other positions, and this could even apply to a guy like a Dalton Rushing, they have a catcher, which means they're trying to incorporate something that he hasn't done before, which is left field, to be able to get him to the big league level. So do that
at the minor league level, not the major league level. That's my request.
Yes, I totally
agree. I hope they've
agree.
learned that lesson.
Yes, I hope that they've learned that lesson as well. With Free, there is a hole at the shortstop position. Now it's filled in by Mookie Betts, so the organization says at this point. But Mookie Betts has shown that he has the ability to play other positions at an incredibly high level to where you can open up the shortstop position and then perhaps Mookie moves over to second base or he moves over to right field. Yeah. And I also think
second base.
Free,
I'm not big on him in right field.
Yeah. I think he would move over to second base. With Free, I also think that he has the athleticism to be able to play a third base if needed or a second base. I think that it would be a little bit smart for him to get a little bit more reps at those positions just to add a little bit more. But I think long term, he is a shortstop. I feel very confident with him at the shortstop position based on what I've seen to this point. He steals 30 bases. So I think with the hole that is created with the Dodgers as far as long term, I think that plays really well for him. Whereas with other positions, they've tried to shoehorn other guys like Miguel Vargas into different positions to where, depending on the need of the organization. Now, the need for Alex Freeland or the hole that is opened up is the position that he plays. And I think the Dodgers, because they don't have necessarily the long-term answer to shortstop at this point, or besides Mookie Betts, I think that plays really well for him and could lead to some opportunities going forward.
So let me throw this at you.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if really all you're concerned about, like we have a comment here from Christopher, on this team, all he has to do is play elite D. Well, if that's your objective, hey, we just want a shortstop that will go out and play a great short. Okay. Who is the name of the shortstop for the Giants forever? Long curly hair.
Brandon Crawford.
Huh?
Brandon Crawford. Yeah.
Okay. If you want that type of guy, right? The guy that's going to have a pretty swing, but not really give you a whole lot of offense. Crawford, I think, had some decent offensive years, but typically speaking, he's more of a defensive shortstop, right? That type of guy. You have that guy in your system. You have a guy that, in my opinion, can play elite major league defense at the shortstop position. The question would be whether you could get league average offense out of him. He's a switch hitter. That guy is Noah Miller.
Yeah.
So you have kind of this wild card guy in Alex Freeland that has a world of power combined with a world of athletic ability, and then we'll see as far as the defensive skills versus Noah Miller. And then you have a Noah Miller guy who's so really with Alex Freeland, it's all about the upside, right? What kind of can you tap into the upside and then make that upside a consistent version of himself? That's the whole question about Alex Freeland. We know the upside's there. Can he reach that upside and stay there, right? Whereas with Noah Miller, you already know what you have, and it's probably not going to deviate a whole lot, even from the AA level where he's at to the major league level. It's going to be way above average defense.
Yes.
And an offensive game that you're hoping is somewhere around league average. You have that guy.
Yeah, that's going to be the path for Noah Miller going forward, is getting the bat to an acceptable level to where he can play consistent shortstop at the big league level. He can play shortstop tomorrow for the Dodgers.
Absolutely. He played an above average shortstop at the major league level now.
Yeah, immediately.
Yes,
he's incredibly gifted. I saw so many plays that were beyond belief that Noah Miller
couldn't tell you what he's going to give you offensively, but I can tell you he would be a above average defender right now.
And so it's about getting that bat to that level. With Alex Freeland, he showed so much promise during this upcoming season and has really solid defense to pair to that, as well as a ton of different skill set, different tools that makes you incredibly excited about the future that he has. So both of those guys, really talented players. They're both really gifted. It's about how those skills are going to be translate and consistently translate to the big league level. With Noah Miller, is he able to hit a little bit consistently enough to at least be league average or maybe a little bit below league average to make it to where his glove is worth it at the defensive position? With Alex Freeland, it's how consistently can he make that contact? Even though I think you look at his strikeout numbers, they were a little bit high as he went up the level, but they're still not, especially if you look at the swing and miss perspective, it's still not unbelievably high for Alex Freeland. Is he able to make consistent enough contact and good consistent enough contact to reach the ceiling that he has?
Because all about his ceiling.
His ceiling
Miller's all about his floor.
Yes.
Miller's floor is very high, and then Alex Freeland's ceiling is very high. Do you want a ceiling player or do you want a floor player?
Yes, and I think that's the question.
That's an amazing question.
It's an amazing question, and I think it depends on who you ask, and depending on what the needs for the teams are.
It's the Arenado Max Muncy conversation.
Yeah.
It's that exact conversation at a different level, right? Hey, who do you think's the next third baseman? I think if everything goes right and everybody develops the way that the Dodgers think everybody's going to develop, I think Cody Hosey, we don't know where he's going to be. Had a great year last year. I'm hoping he does the Andre Lipsius thing and finds him a place somewhere. I hope he becomes a third baseman for the Dodgers. But I think I would make the statement if you had to ask me, who are the Dodgers planning on being the next everyday third baseman? My response to that would be Jake Geloff. I know he didn't have a good offensive year last year. It's the Midwest League. It's in Michigan. I don't even pay attention to that. Plus, I mean, even guys like Will Smith have had weird years on offense. But I'm telling you, Jake Geloff, his brother Zach's in the major leagues. He has a major league pedigree. He can hit the ball the other way. He has a ton of power. He has soft hands. He's a good athlete. I just see major leaguer all over Jake Geloff.
Yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with Jake. Got to see him for good majority. He was actually the guy that replaced Alex Freeland when Free got called up. Jake Geloff was called up to Great Lakes. And I think especially early, it was a struggle to get going for him.
Yeah.
But there was a stretch.
It was cold, right?
The weather was starting to heat up. It was a little bit cold. But also that adjustment. There is an adjustment that players have to make from the low A level to the high A level. There's an adjustment
Absolutely.
every
It's a
single
big
level
adjustment.
that you have to go up. And I think there was a struggle for him to be able to make that adjustment. But there were certain stretches throughout the season during the summer where Geloff was as hot as just about anybody within this organization.
No, he's good, man.
Yeah, there are some really good stretches. Again, with him, it's about making those steps and finding that consistency. If he's able to find that consistency, I saw there the power is there. You flash that and flash it. Incredible home runs.
He's capable of being consistent. He's capable of being a good hitter and a power hitter both.
Yes.
He didn't show it last year. I understand that.
Yes,
but he's capable of it.
Yes, he's got the tools. He's got the tools. It's about having those pieces come together in order to make it to that next level. So I'm not giving up on him. Absolutely not. And
heck no.
No, absolutely.
I'm just saying if everything goes the way the Dodgers have planned and everybody develops the way that they want everybody to develop, in the perfect world, we know it's not perfect, but if there's a perfect world, which is the only way you can really answer these questions. So in the perfect world, I think they want Jake Geloff to develop into the type of offensive player they think he is capable of being, and he becomes a damn good Major League Baseball third baseman. Now, am I saying will that happen? That's entirely up to Jake. I'm saying he's totally capable of doing it. I mean, I can't give you a positive yes or no at all. All I can tell you is, I'll put it to you this way. If everybody reaches their potential as a prospect in this system, the next third baseman for the Dodgers is Jake Geloff, and it's not close.
Yes.
I'll make that statement.
Yes.
If everybody reaches their potential.
There's a reason why they drafted him as highly as they drafted Jake Geloff is because the upside for him is incredibly high. It's about tapping into those tools that he's got and finding that consistency.
Yeah. I guess you can talk about guys that are at the complex league. I don't do that. I mean, you're talking about guys with skill sets. You're not talking. I think if you'd have taken Jake Geloff and put him at the same competition level. So, I mean, that's why you just can't, like prospects list and ranking guys and this and that. Ranking a guy's tools at the complex versus a guy who's trying to hit at the Midwest League, it's a totally different scenario. So, I mean, if I know Hep covers the prospects pretty heavily, but there's just no way you can compare an Emil Morales or Joandry Vargas or any of those guys at the complex to what Jake Geloff's having to do at this point. There's just no way you can compare.
I hesitate to make analysis for myself on guys that I have not seen personally.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
Now, there's certain guys that have seen them personally, and there's a lot of high reports, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the potential, and obviously the Dodgers scouted them, signed them, and gave some of these guys, especially some of the international guys, a lot of money to be part of this organization. I just hesitate for my own analysis.
I mean, hell, Wilman Diaz is one of the hottest prospects in the. I mean, whenever he was like in the DSL and all that, and not to say he won't end up being that guy still too, right? Raindon Cone was a huge name, right? I mean, and I'm not saying those guys won't be great. I'm just saying I personally take zero stock in people telling me how good somebody is. That's still at the complex, right? I mean, like, again, not to say that they won't be. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying at this point, I'm not taking any stock into it.
They're 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids.
Yes.
They're very much younger.
Playing against other 17-year-olds.
Yes.
That have, right.
Yeah, so that's where a lot of the hesitation comes with a lot of this. For me, it does.
I'm not saying I'm right. That's just me.
Yeah, and I have not had a chance to watch any of these guys play, and that's where a lot of my evaluation comes, is actually going to a lot of these games and seeing the ins and outs of them and looking at some of the numbers during this type of competition that they're going up against, which I think I value a lot of this competition of affiliate ball more than the complex league stuff, which still good for their development, but I just prefer to make my evaluation on these guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. And again, I'm not, I guess I'm being, I don't know, but I'm not trying to be like I'm right. That's just my personal opinion on how I view those things. And everybody's different. And prospect talk is like the most subjective thing that you could possibly do, because it's like hitting. I mean, even the best scouts and even the best people who write scouting reports and people who predict this and that, they're wrong a lot, right?
Yes, they very much are.
I mean, they just absolutely are. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, Brandon Lewis was a hot prospect, right, in the Dodgers system. Jainer Fernandez was a huge prospect there. I mean, I think he was ranked like number 15 in the top prospects list, that kind of deal. So, not that he couldn't get right back up there in it. Diego Cartaya is another guy that was the Dodgers' number 1 prospect at one point. And so, really, I mean, just until you hit that AA deal, really, I mean, high A, maybe AA, it's different for each player. It's very difficult. But, hey, we've had a wonderful show, Austin. Again, I want to remind you that I don't know when I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to release it at the most strategic time. But my conversation with Steven Nelson, he takes you behind the scenes of what it's like to be the play-by-play announcer of the Dodgers. Not just surface stuff like, hey, what was it like to meet Shohei Ohtani, or what was it like to see the home? He's going to take you behind the scenes. So he's going to take you behind the scenes of what is prep like for a major league play-by-play guy. What is it like? As far as, do you plan like certain calls, or do you let it come organically? Like, how do you develop a style? What's it like working with Rick Monday? All of the behind the curtain type questions I asked, and he did a great job answering them. And so I just can't wait to release his interview. So whenever I do that, turn on your notifications and make sure when that pops up, hit that thing. It's kind of long, so if you need to watch it in multiple segments, do that, but watch it all the way through, because I'm very proud of that one. So I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging or anything like that, but I am very proud of that interview, Austin. So you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, we just got another super chat for Kristen Navarro, so we will let's get to that first before we get to my final thoughts. But first off, that the interview I have not seen it, obviously, but it sounds absolutely amazing. Must see, check that out. Also, some other player interviews or personnel within the system just recently got released. Today was TY.
Yeah, TY, baby.
One of my favorite people in the system.
He's not getting any Dodgers Daily anything for Christmas, damn it.
Oh, I know. I remember that was one of the first questions you asked. That, you know what?
Yeah. He told me he was shopping whenever we were trying to figure out when we're going to do it. He said, hey, I'm shopping here, I'm shopping there. And so I said, hey, do you mind if I just lost I said, do you mind if I ask the question, who'd you buy the present for first, your mom or your wife? And he goes, no, you're not asking that question. He said, that's a trapdoor question. So I had to leave that one out. So instead I asked him what he got Dodgers Daily for Christmas. He said nothing.
Yeah, of course we get nothing. Maybe next year, but no, that was just released. And then yesterday, Dave Anderson, the ad interview was released. That was really cool.
He was amazing, isn't he?
The
way he's able to explain these complex systems to somebody like me and you and everybody else out there that aren't even like, I think I know a lot about baseball, right? Okay. Yeah. And then I listen to him talking, I'm like,
I don't know.
There's a whole different level out there of baseball knowledge than what I have. I mean, and he's able to explain it where I can actually understand it, and it's just like, it's fascinating to me.
Oh, his IQ is off the chart, and how he's able to work with these guys, and the guys that he gets to work with are amazing. And then yesterday, I think it was Eric Swan was yesterday also as
Eric
well.
Swan.
And I'm so excited to see
Eric
that guy.
Swan, baby. Get the ball in the strike zone, Eric. Do you see all the different grips he went through?
Oh, yeah.
That was cool.
He actually went through and showed you exactly how he goes about and does it.
I'm going to release Sean, because we're having Sean Coyne on the show tomorrow night. We're going to do it just like we did Dylan, and it's going to be like 45 minutes. Come back. I think I have it set for 6 o'clock Pacific. Sit through the Sean Coyne prospect talk. He's going to take you through Ronaldo Yean. He's going to take you through Eric Swan. He's going to take you through all those young arms that are super talented that still need to be developed. And so that's a lot of fun. He point blank said, and I'll let this one out of the bag. It's like getting that, opening the one Christmas present on Christmas Eve, getting ready. I'll give you that one Christmas present on Christmas Eve, right? He point blank said Eric Swan has a generational arm type of talent. Point blank's what he said about Eric Swan. So, yeah, Eric Swan, get the ball in the strike zone and let's freaking go, right?
Let's go. Let's go win a Midwest League championship this year if he stays around that long. Although I don't know if he'll stick around Great Lakes that long.
Hey, Christopher Navarro has another super chat. Which prospect makes the biggest contribution this year? Non-pitcher. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all Dodgers dogs. Best clean baseball conversation on YouTube. Christopher, you are a rock star. I would say is as long as Andy Pages is still considered a prospect, I would have to say Andy Pages.
Okay, let's not go Andy Pages. Let's go somebody who hasn't made their debut yet.
It's going to be Dalton Rushing then.
Yeah, it's going to be Dalton Rushing would be my guess too. Unless
just because of opportunity.
Yeah, because of and that's the biggest thing.
Cameron Decker, Hep C. Yeah, Cameron Decker is big time. He hit 3 home runs in his first 4 at-bats as senior year in high school. He hit 6 home runs in his first 3 games. He had 10 RBIs last year, 6 hits. Cameron Decker hits light tower home runs. And he played shortstop growing up, so he's a great athlete. Probably going to end up being like a left fielder or maybe a utility type guy. Yes, you are correct, Hep. Cameron Decker has big time tools. Great kid too.
So here's what I want to say. Last year, I had the opportunity to go out to Wisconsin, go see the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, Great Lakes Loons, and Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, and Kyle Nevin hit a home run off of the light pole. Halfway up that, maybe 3/4 of the way up that light pole, which is outside of the outfield wall. It's not right outside. It's like 20 feet outside, which means that's an absolute bomb.
Yeah.
I want to see Cameron Decker do that.
He can do it.
He has the chance.
Have you not seen some of the ones that I posted about Cameron Decker?
Yeah. I want to see him hit it higher up on that light tower in 2025 if he is still with the Loons, because I think they visit Wisconsin towards the end of the season in August. If he is still with the Loons, I want to see that exact same home run, except even higher up. That home run for Nevin was unbelievable watching that in person.
I like Nevin. I think he's underrated. Of course, he didn't have a great year offensively, but there were some reasons for that I hope he gets figured out. But, hey, we have a question from Christopher Navarro before we get out of here. Who is T-Boo? T-Boo is Jose Rodriguez. You heard from him, I believe, on Tuesday. And he's named T-Boo because it's a shark. And he tells the story. But it's named after a shark, and like his dad was the GM of a professional team named the Sharks. And so he has a tattoo on his arm of a shark. And that shark is a T-Boo shark. So that's who T-Boo is. So, hey, I said last time, final thoughts, Austin. Let's do it for real this time.
Yeah, we'll actually do it for real. Really fun show. Really appreciative of you guys and what we're able to do right here. Got to do a little bit of work on my show on Monday, going through some of the different analysis, and so that resource is out there. And then it's on to the next thing for me. And I've already creating something, actually looking at the draft results for the Dodgers and what they've actually done in the draft, which actually one of my findings has been incredibly fascinating. I'll let this out of the bag a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm getting some of this right. So this is looking at the Andrew Freeman era of drafting. And this is looking at, so this is 2015 through 2024, which includes, 2024 in the draft. The Dodgers, obviously, during that time frame has had a ton of success. They rank, as far as average draft position, if you look at the first 10 rounds, dead last. Do you want to guess, if you were to rank the Dodgers 1 to 30 in teams of baseball, as far as players to debut from this system that were drafted by the Dodgers, which they should be dead last because they were ranked 30th in draft position, what position would you say the last 10 years?
That they've ranked as far as
players that have at least made their major league debut.
I would say top 5, second
number
or third.
2.
Yeah, I was going to say second or third. Yeah,
they rank second in getting guys to the.
Now that doesn't mean level. that the Dodgers reap that benefit on the field.
That's not to say that they're sticking at the big league level.
Trey Sweeney did it in Detroit and that kind of deal. But Corey Seager's with the Rangers, that kind of thing.
But Trey Sweeney wasn't drafted by the Dodgers, so he doesn't even count in this.
But you get my drift there.
Yes, and there's certain qualifiers that you can have. But the Dodgers are able to, despite what they have drafted, which is towards the end of the round, still able to get some of the most amount of people, actual numbers amount of people. And if you look at it percentage wise, as far as the draft picks, the number of people to the draft, absolutely incredible what they're able to do. The people within this organization, as you've heard from, are incredible. I'm excited for the interview with Steven Nelson. That's going to be amazing. It's Christmas time, so I'm already in a good spirit. It's a good time, and especially with the Dodgers winning the World Series this year. it is a great time to be a fan of the Dodgers, and especially with you guys being around here, supporting the channel. For Casey, having the fun conversations back and forth, it's absolutely a privilege to do this every single time.
Absolutely, and we have a question about our holiday show schedule. Christmas, I believe, is on Wednesday, so obviously we won't have our show that night. So we'll probably just skip the Wednesday show and do the regular schedule for everything else.
I will not be on Monday. I have Christmas Eve services that I got to go to Monday night, so I will be busy Monday night. So nothing on Monday night on my end, but a lot of the other
shows. That's what. Join us Monday night. Now that's when I'm going to put the Steven Nelson interview out there.
There you go.
Let's do that. So Monday will be Steven Nelson. Sunday night we'll have our regular show. Friday night we'll have a regular show. Wednesday I might put out some kind of prospect coverage type deal like I did last year on Christmas Day. Maybe not. Who knows? And then we'll do our regular show on Friday. So
sounds good.
Okay. Austin, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank everybody else out there for a wonderful show. What a great lobby we have. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. So until next time, it's a great day to be a Dodger.